Hi, welcome to Our Box Guitar Tuition. So I've got another classic album inspection for you. Please share and subscribe if you enjoy these. So today, September the 14th, 1981, marks the 40th anniversary of the sophomore release by the Michael Schenker Group. So just titled MSG, I often call this, and people call this MSG too, because the first album's called the Michael Schenker Group, so we can just differentiate. So just a little background, Schenker basically quits UFO at the back end of 1978 after having gone walkabout prior to that. He falls out over the mix of the Strange in the Night album with Ron Neverson, ironically, who will produce this album we're going to talk about. Then he joins the Scorpions briefly, so Matthias Jabs is in the Scorpions. I think he's done some of the Love Drive album. Michael comes in, does his parts on on Love Drive, Another Piece of Meat, Coast to Coast. Coast to Coast, the one that's caused a big fallout with Rudolph now, I think, due to like writing credits and publishing and so on. Then he goes on tour with the Scorpions. If you look at photos from this time, he's wearing a kind of black jeans and a fetching kind of yellow suit jacket and thin, it's kind of yellow leather tie. Very sort of new wave, quite sort of weird and cool. Still has his sort of obsession, shoulder length permed hair. Then he leaves the Scorpions. You can find bootlegs of the gigs online. Quite interesting, doing early John Roth stuff. Matthias Jebs goes back to that, and obviously he, embeds himself in there and becomes the German Van Halen. And then Michael, I think, has a bit of a breakdown. He smashes his guitars up and cuts all his hair off. So when you next see him, which is on the front cover of the Michael Schenker Group album, he has sort of spiky blonde hair. And he's playing a Flying V with kind of black scratch plates, which you'll be aware of, back in the Lights Out Obsession era, he was playing the white Flying V. So on the Michael Schenker Group album, Roger Glover produces, he uses session musicians Simon Phillips, Awesome, and Mo Foster, and Don Airey. But he has Gary Barden on vocals, but to go out on tour with that, he puts a crack squad together. He has Cozy Powell, Chris Glenn, and Paul Raymond. If you go online, you'll find a live gig from about 1980, German TV, I think. It's absolutely brilliant. This band play the album live and really well bedded in by the time they come to do this album. So everything's set up really well. The Michael Schenker Group, the debut album, I think made number 8 in the UK charts. Did well in Japan, got a lot of respect, quite rightly so. It's a bit of a classic. But unfortunately, what happened with this album is we'll go very over budget. Ron Neverson will get very perfectionist in the studio, and they're expensive studios. I'm just looking here, there are Air Studios in London. That's big and expensive. And then they go to Montserrat as well, and it's done between March and May 81. So I'm guessing this has probably had an 8-week recording and mix schedule. They've probably been hemorrhaging about £2,000 to £3,000 a day. So with all the catering and that, they could have been using about 20 grand a week up. In 8 weeks you'd spend 160 grand. I believe the debt to the label for this was £250,000. Whether that was what's called cross-collateralised from the debt of the first album, but either way, the band never really recovered from this. I think the other problem for Michael Schenker, Cozy Powell won't be cheap. It certainly, and I think probably went to Whitesnake for better wages. Chris Glenn, Paul Raymond, will come at a reasonable price. They were hemorrhaging money on this. So what's the album like? I think it's different from the first album. I think that's the first port of call, and that's good. There's kind of growth in the sound and the taking sideways steps. There's some aspects I'm not so keen on, but we'll go into those. But opens with Are You Ready to Rock? It's only 36 minutes and 47 seconds this album, so like a lot of albums at that time, it's coming in between that 35-minute and 40-minute length. Just 8 tracks. Are You Ready to Rock? 3 minutes 26. This is a great opening track. The first thing you notice though is the production and the mix. And it's got quite a strange sound, this record. When I cranked it on my hi-fi downstairs, I actually found myself turning the bass down, and the bass isn't boomy, but it's got a weird sort of odd thud to it that's kind of a bit intrusive. So I had my bass kind of like past, just past the halfway the other way, as it were. And I found that kind of tempered it a little bit. The drum sounds big. It's got a kind of Ron Neverson's gone for the sort of Obsession, natural kind of quite cavernous sound, but it's not as big as Obsession. But Cozy Powell's great on it. He's really tight. You can really hear it. Michael's rhythm guitar sounds really quite distorted. It's probably one of the heaviest guitar sounds he's had. It's got a lot of bottom end. I really like it. Really good crunch to it. But one of my sort of criticisms, and it's prevalent in this track, is sometimes a lack of clarity. It's got this weird bass sound. There's kind of a roomy sort of sound to the mix, and sometimes it feels like Michael's guitar's not quite cutting through as much as it should, and then the solos on quite a lot of tracks are a bit buried. Maybe that's caused him to fall out of Ron Nevison, I would imagine, as well. And I imagine the record companies probably said you should go Ron Nevison because he'd had such success with the last 2 UF albums he did. But this is a great track. It's a classic of MSG. They play it live a lot. Really cool. Good shout out chorus. Cheesy lyrics, but a lot of fun. Then the next track opens with Attack the Mad Axeman. This is kind of 3 songs in one. You've got this kind of groovy Aerosmith type riff. It's quite unusual because I think Michael was associated with the Aerosmith gig. Then it kind of breaks down into this kind of melodic ballad section, and then goes into this crazy cool F sharp riff at the end, and Michael just does one of the best face melters ever. So it's only 4 minutes 17, so it's kind of really interesting. Again, with this, it's quite heavy when the riff comes in, and you can hear like the sort of bottom end. But again, I feel the solo's buried. This is some of Schenker's greatest sort of pentatonic frenzied soloing, but it's a bit buried for me. And the other thing, it's here where Gary Barn uses a lot of falsetto, and that's something that's prevalent throughout the album. I think Gary Barn has more limited range than some rock singers. I think him and Ron Nevison, or maybe Ron Nevison's decided on him doing falsetto or mixed voice sometimes to get higher notes. And sometimes that doesn't work for me. I feel like rock singing has to be hitting the chest range. But I do like Gary Barden. I think, he's maybe not had the best lie of the green on this record. The vocals kind of stand out pretty good. Again, it does kind of get caught up in this sort of kind of room-like wash to me. But Attack the Mad Axeman's a great track. The live version's great as well. Next track's On and On. Again, you got more falsetto on. This is a more melodic track. Lovely keyboard intro. Lovely melodic solo in by Michael. And then the track finishes with Let Sleeping Dogs Lie. Quite interesting low backing vocals on the chorus on this. With Gary Barnum kind of doing the spoken bit underneath. This has got a great Schenker riff with a bit of wah-wah on it. It gets kind of cocked more the wah-wah on the live version. Classic sort of European sounding thing. Brilliant soloing. It's actually written by the whole band. Barden, Chris Glenn, Cozy Powell, Paul Raymond, Schenker. The other tracks are all Schenker Barden on side one. This track's 5:21, so a bit longer. So side one's 17 minutes, something like that. So it's a solid side. I'd say listening to it today, I was probably not enjoying On and On quite as much as I usually do. And I was enjoying Sleeping Dogs Lie riff, but the first 2 are the kind of top ones. But it's a really solid side, and it's, like I said, it's got a different sound, different feel, and more of a band approach than the first album. So side 2 opens with one of the epic tracks, 6 minutes 56, but I Want More. Again, this has got quite interesting sections. It starts quietly. You've got quite kind of epic sort of riffs in D minor. Michael kind of using the G and B strings, pedaling the D. Then he goes into this kind of funky riff, a bit like If It Feels Like a Good Thing. Then it's got this cut time chorus, which is soft. Some good backing vocals, good sort of dynamics on this, epic soloing. Quite odd pronunciation on the words on Gary Barden and this, all I ever get from you. Quite strange. But it's the album's sort of epic track. Again, it worked really well live. Great tune. Then next track's the sort of cure of the album, Never Trust a Stranger. This is solely a Paul Raymond track. I've got to say, prior to listening to it today, I've always been like, oh, Never Trust a Stranger. But in actual fact, listening to it today, I thought this is just what the album needs. I really liked it. I think the mix is a bit better on this. I think the vocal level's right. Michael's solos sit out more. And Gary Barden, I think, gives one of his best vocal performances on this. How long's the track? 4:24. It feels kind of long. It feels like it goes somewhere, this track. So I was really into that today. Track 7, this is like the deep cut for me. This has got some of Michael's greatest ever playing. It's Looking for Love, 4 minutes and 3 seconds, so it's kind of got a triplet, da-da-da-da-da-da type of feel. Pretty simple song with a cool vocal. The mix on this is better to me, and Ron Nevison's, brought Michael's guitar level up, and he's got a lovely kind of delay reverb on it, and the balance is really good, and Michael just displays some beautiful stuff in me. He does this lovely phrase, and in the end he does this solo that builds, really epic. It's quite cool backing vocals in this as well. It's got some high ahs in the back. I think Gary Barnes done those. Yeah, it's like the sound of this and Never Trust a Stranger. You know, if the other mixes were more like this, I just forgot to mention before, like Attack of the Mad Axeman. I mean, Michael's kind of sounds kind of phased on that, and again, that's the upshot of that is it kind of sinks the solo more. But obviously, I like guitar solos. Maybe someone hearing the tracks would perceive it differently. And then the album probably finishes with the least well-known track, which is Secondary Motion, 3 minutes 42. And again, I was really enjoying this track today. It's just a straight-ahead rocker. You know, it shows the kind of the bass grunt on Michael's rhythm guitar sound here. Nice lead, catchy chorus, quite poppy. You can almost hear with the keyboards, with you know, a bit of kind of pop influence there, and no bad thing. So, you know, this is a consistent record. I probably still prefer MSG 1, the Michael Schenker group. I think there's aspects of the production of this is better, because the Michael Schenker group album can be a little tepid in places. Obviously, the production issues will get sorted on the next album. But there's all sorts of other problems with that. I think, but this album, I would give it certainly an 8.5 out of 10, probably a 9. It is a classic. It's many people's favourite MSG album. I wouldn't dispute people loving it. It benefits from having only 8 tracks. And I think the band he had at this time looked good as well. When you look at pictures of them, I mean, this is back to front, but there's a picture of them on the back there. I mean, they've got quite a nice look about them. There's a nice feel that this is a real band thing. And again, it wasn't the last Cozy went to over to Whitesnake. Paul Raymond didn't get on with Chris Glenn. So the upshot was Ted McKenna came in. No bad thing, so that's great. But the sort of legacy of this album was they released the One Night at Budokan album the next year. I suspect because The Stranger in the Night had done well, I expect the record company thought it was a way to recoup quickly on the debts, or the management did. I think Peter Mensch had something to do with MSG at this point, and that all went tits up, I think. But again, you know, Peter Mensch was a great manager, so, you know, there's a lot of management things with Michael Schenker. But the Budokan, I remember, had a sort of nice price ring of £4.99, so the record company obviously kind of decided to take a little bath on the price to try and recoup, and it did do well. This is just my theory. But then it was decided that Gary Barnes' vocals weren't good enough. He got the boot, and then Graham Bonnet came in. So next year, when it's the 40th anniversary of Assault Attack, we'll go into that more. But I'll just say I think the Budokan album and the Assault Attack album coming out in the same year harmed Assault Attack. And Assault Attack also came out the same year as Scream for Vengeance, Number of the Beast, and Blackout, 3 of the most seminal albums of the 3 most seminal metal albums of '82, really. So it kind of, that's one of the things I've contributed, getting lost a little, which in hindsight it shouldn't, because it's maybe the greatest MSG album, but that's for later. But yeah, 40 years ago today, MSG, or MSG2 as I call it. Just last thing, I remember the vinyl of this had a kind of textured sleeve, which was really cool. My brother had this on cassettes, so that was the first time I heard it, and later on, you know, I got it on CD. Yeah, great album. Schenker on a massive hot run of classics from 74 right the way through to 82. Thanks for watching. Remember to share and subscribe, and see you again. Thank you very much.